name is Julie and I turned 50 last winter. Sometimes I look in the mirror and barely recognize the woman staring back at me. Wrinkles tracing years of laughter and pain. Eyes that once sparkled with youth, now holding the weight of memories. Yet behind that reflection lies a story, not extraordinary perhaps, but deeply human. I live with my husband Martin and our 4 children in a modest house at the edge of a small town. Martin owns a laundry shop downtown, the kind where people still come with baskets full of clothes, sit for hours chatting while the machines hum in the background and the air smells of soap and steam. He started that business long before we married, and it became our family's heartbeat. Every morning, he wakes up before sunrise, ties his apron, and walks to the shop with quiet purpose. I often watch him from the kitchen window as I make breakfast. The streets are empty, the world's still half asleep, and there he goes, the man who's held this family together for decades, one washed shirt at a time. Our eldest daughter, Amanda, is 20. Beautiful, independent, and full of life, she has my stubbornness and her father's soft heart. She studies at a local college, and lately I've noticed her dressing up more often, spending longer hours out with her friends. I thought it was just youth, that thrilling phase of discovering yourself. But deep down, I sensed something else. The sparkle in her eyes had changed. There was a secret behind it. Then there's Amelia, my 17-year-old dreamer. She's quieter than Amanda, often lost in her own world of melodies and notebooks. She spends hours in her room writing songs, humming to herself. I always thought it was just a hobby, a way to escape homework or chores. I never realized how gifted she truly was, not yet anyway. And then there are my twins, Rose and Robert, 5 years old, full of endless energy. They're my sunshine on the darkest days. They have a little puppy named Max who runs around the house like a tiny storm. The twins can't go anywhere without him. Every morning they feed him biscuits and play catch in the yard while I water my plants. The sound of their laughter fills our home like music. But life, as I've learned, doesn't stay peaceful for long. For months, I'd been having small arguments with my neighbours. They're a middle-aged couple who moved in 2 years ago, and ever since, my garden has been their favourite target. Somehow their kids always end up trampling my flowers, their dog digs near my fence, and they pretend it's nothing. I've spent hours trying to keep peace, but there are days when my patience runs dry. Gardening is my therapy, my little world where I feel calm, and seeing it ruined again and again made something inside me boil. I tried talking politely at first, but soon it turned into shouting matches over the fence. The whole neighbourhood must have heard us. I hated that version of myself, angry and loud, but I couldn't stop it. My temper had started to rule me. Martin often came home tired from the shop, only to find me fuming over the latest incident. He'd try to calm me down, tell me to ignore them, to focus on our kids instead of people who didn't matter. But when anger grabs hold of you, it's like a fire that feeds on every word. One hot summer afternoon, Amanda came home glowing with excitement. She said she'd gone to a music concert with her friends, a big one held at the stadium downtown. I smiled, imagining her dancing under the lights, feeling young and free. She showed me pictures, her face shining with joy, surrounded by music and laughter. But she also mentioned someone new, a man she met there. His name was Jason. She said he was 30, mature and kind. I remember the way she said his name, soft and dreamy. My heart tightened instantly. 30? That was 10 years older than her. But I didn't want to ruin her happiness, not yet. Over the next few weeks, she talked about him often, how he texted her every morning, how he made her feel special, how he said she was different from other girls. I wanted to believe she knew what she was doing, that she was careful. But a mother's instinct never lies. Something about this man didn't feel right. Still, Amanda kept seeing him, always with an excuse. Study group, late classes, a friend's birthday. I noticed changes in her. She became secretive, restless, more defensive when I asked questions. Martin thought I was overreacting, that I was turning into the kind of mother who suffocates her children. But I couldn't shake the feeling that danger was creeping into our family, quietly and unseen. While Amanda drifted deeper into her own secret world, Amelia's life was about to change too, though in a completely different way. Amelia worked part-time backstage at a concert company that hosted local and regional shows. She wasn't famous, not even noticed. She arranged props, tested lights that helped singers with microphones. Just another girl behind the scenes. But one evening, fate decided to push her into the spotlight. It was a Friday night concert. The main performer, a famous lady singer, was running late. On her way to the venue, she had been in a small car accident and was rushed to the hospital for checkups. The organisers were panicking. The crowd outside was massive, thousands of people chanting, waiting. The show had to start, or it would turn chaotic. The event manager, Mr. Carter, was pacing backstage, desperate for a solution. That's when he heard Amelia humming. She was helping the band test microphones, her soft voice filling the air as she sang a song she'd written herself. He stopped in his tracks, listening. Her voice was pure, emotional and powerful, the kind that made you forget where you were. He asked her if she could sing on stage for a few minutes, just to calm the crowd until the main singer arrived. At first, Amelia froze. She'd never performed in front of anyone, not even our family. But something inside her said yes. And so, when the curtains lifted, my shy little girl stepped into the blinding lights. She held the microphone with trembling hands and began to sing. Her voice floated through the stadium, soft at first, then stronger, braver, fuller. The crowd went silent, then erupted in cheers. People recorded her, shouted her name, even though they didn't know who she was. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Mr. Carter was speechless. The main singer, who arrived halfway through her song, stood backstage watching her with surprise and admiration. That night, Amelia wasn't just the girl behind the curtains. She was a star, though she didn't realize it yet. Meanwhile, Amanda was sinking deeper into a world she didn't understand. Jason's charm had blinded her, and she didn't know he was a gangster, a man with a history of crimes, wanted for fraud and violence. He told her lies wrapped in romance, promises wrapped in danger, and while she dreamed of love, he was using her for reasons I couldn't yet see. Life in our home started shifting like sand. The twins still played with Max, chasing him through the garden, their laughter echoing through the house. Martin worked longer hours at the shop. I tried to keep everything together, but inside me, storms were brewing. Between Amanda's secret love, Amelia's rising star, and my own battles with temper and neighbours, I could feel something building, like the quiet before a thunderstorm. And when it came, it would change everything. The weeks that followed were filled with small changes, some that made me proud, others that kept me awake at night. Amelia's unexpected performance became the talk of the town. Videos of her singing spread quickly through social media. People kept asking, who is she? Where did she come from? The concert manager, Mr. Carter, called her the next day and offered her another chance to perform a full song before the next show. I couldn't believe it when she told me. My quiet, soft-spoken girl, who used to sing only in her room, was suddenly getting offers to perform on stage. Martin was proud. He told everyone at the laundry shop about his daughter's voice. The regular customers congratulated him, saying they'd seen the video online. For the first time in years, there was a lightness in his face that I hadn't seen before. It made me smile too, even though I couldn't stop worrying about Amanda. Amanda had become distant. She used to tell me everything, what she wore, where she went, who she met. But now, her answers were short. Her eyes avoided mine, and her phone was always locked. One evening, as I was folding laundry in the living room, I saw her rushing to leave. She was dressed up beautifully, a new perfume lingering behind her. I asked where she was going, and she simply said, out with friends. I wanted to believe her, but the tone of her voice told another story. That night, she came home late, long after midnight. I heard her sneak in quietly, trying not to wake anyone. But I was awake, pretending to sleep. When she tiptoed past my door, I noticed something that made my heart sink. Her eyes were red, and her expression was hollow. The next morning, I tried to talk to her, but she brushed me off. I turned to Martin, hoping he'd say something, but he just sighed. Julie, she's young. You're overthinking again. Let her live. But I couldn't just let it go. I'm a mother. Worry is stitched into my soul. Meanwhile, Amelia's life was changing fast. After her second performance, she was offered a small recording opportunity. Nothing big, just a local studio that wanted her to record one of her songs. The first time I watched her sing in front of an audience, my heart swelled with pride and disbelief. She was radiant under the lights, her voice steady and filled with emotion. The crowd adored her. When we got home that night, the twins jumped around her, shouting that their big sister was famous now. Even Max barked happily, sensing the joy in the air. But for every rise, there's always a shadow. One afternoon, while I was watering my plants, my neighbour, the one I always fought with, came over, pretending to smile. Her name was Linda, but I often called her Trouble in my head. She leaned over the fence, pretending to admire the flowers. "Your daughter Amanda," she said, her voice dripping with gossip. "I saw her yesterday downtown, with that man. He doesn't look right, Julie. Just thought you should know." I froze. "What man?" I asked. She smirked. "Tall, dark jacket, tattoos on his neck. Looks like the kind of guy who doesn't belong in a nice family's life." I didn't say a word. My blood boiled. Not because of Linda, but because I knew she was telling the truth. That evening, I followed Amanda when she left the house. I stayed far behind, my heart racing. She walked down the main street, turned a corner, and there he was, Jason. Tall, confident, leaning against a black car. He kissed her on the cheek and put his arm around her. Something about him screamed danger. The way he looked around, the way people stared at him and then quickly turned away. It was enough for me to know this was not love. This was trouble. I wanted to run up to her, to pull her away, but I didn't. I stood frozen as they drove off. That night, I cried quietly. When Martin came home, I told him what I saw. He was silent for a long moment, then said, "We'll talk to her, but not tonight. Let's be careful. If he's dangerous, we don't want to make things worse." Days turned into weeks. Amanda started skipping college. I'd find excuses from her teachers, projects, illness, personal leave, but I knew she was lying. Her grades dropped. Her attitude changed. One evening, when she came home, she looked terrified. Her hands were shaking. She locked herself in her room, refusing to talk. Later, I overheard her on the phone whispering, "I told you I don't want to do it anymore. Please don't come near my family." That was the night I realized she was trapped. The next morning, I begged Martin to go to the police, but he refused. "Julie," he said, "we have no proof. If we go to the police and this man is really dangerous, what if he hurts her? What if he hurts us?" I couldn't argue with that. I felt powerless, like a mother watching her child drown and unable to swim. In the middle of all this chaos, Amelia's career kept rising. She signed a small deal with a music company and started recording her first song. She was excited, glowing and hopeful. I wanted to share her joy, but my heart was heavy with worry. The twins, innocent as always, filled the house with laughter. They played with Max in the yard, their voices the only reminder that childhood can still exist in a world full of fear. But then came the day that broke me. One afternoon, the police came to our door. 2 officers, standing straight-faced, asked to speak with Martin and me. Amanda had been found at an old warehouse outside town, shaken and crying. Jason had been arrested in a drug raid, one that had been planned for months. She was safe, thank God. But she was broken inside. We brought her home. She didn't speak for days. I'd sit beside her bed, brushing her hair from her face, whispering that everything would be all right. But she just stared at the wall, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. I blamed myself. Maybe if I'd trusted my instincts sooner, maybe if I hadn't been so angry and distracted by other things, she would have been safe. Martin tried to stay strong for all of us, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He worked longer hours, rarely spoke at home. The house felt heavy with unspoken words. And then came the argument that changed everything. One evening, my neighbour's kids broke into our garden again, destroying the flowers I had spent months growing. It was the last straw. I shouted at them, and their mother came out yelling back. We screamed at each other across the fence until my voice broke. Martin came home just then. He tried to calm me down, but in my frustration, I turned on him. I accused him of not supporting me, of never understanding how hard everything was. Words spilled out like poison. He shouted back, and before I knew it, I had said things I didn't mean. That night, in anger and humiliation, I filled out divorce papers. It wasn't about the garden. It wasn't even about Martin. It was everything. The stress, the fear, the guilt, the exhaustion. When I handed the papers to my lawyer the next morning, he looked at me for a long time before speaking. "Mrs. Julie," he said gently, "you look like someone carrying more than just marital issues. Before you make this permanent, please see a doctor. Sometimes it's not the marriage that's broken, it's the mind asking for help. I didn't understand what he meant at first, but something in his tone made me pause, and that pause would change my life. And old shadows. Life has a strange rhythm. Just when you begin to think you've finally learned the beat, it changes the tempo without warning. Months had passed since I began my journey to control my anger, and the difference in me was visible to everyone. I laughed more often, spoke more softly, and listened with patience instead of reacting with fire. Martin noticed it first. One evening, as I was helping him fold laundry in the shop, he said, "You seem lighter these days. Happier." I smiled, handing him a clean towel. "Maybe I finally learned how to breathe again." He chuckled, that deep, familiar sound that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with him in the first place. The shop had been doing well lately. Customers liked his honesty and the comfort of familiarity. Many of them had been coming for years, and the little laundry had become a place where people shared stories, laughter, and sometimes tears. Meanwhile, Amelia's music career continued to grow, though she faced her own set of challenges. She had turned down the contract that demanded she change her identity, choosing instead to work independently. That decision wasn't easy. It meant less money, fewer shows, and more hard work. But she was determined to stay true to herself. She often said, "Mom, fame fades, but truth stays." I'd watch her record songs late into the night in our small living room, her voice echoing softly as the twins fell asleep on the couch beside her. Sometimes Martin and I would sit quietly, listening. There was something magical about hearing your child's soul in her music. Amanda had started her second year of college again. She was slowly becoming her old self, gentle, thoughtful, focused. She joined a group that helped young women learn self-defense and build confidence. She said it gave her strength. Sometimes she'd come home tired but proud, showing us photos of their community work. One evening she told me, "Mom, I want to open a counselling centre one day for girls like me who lost themselves and need to find a way back." My heart swelled with pride. The same girl who once fell into darkness was now helping others find light. The twins, Rose and Robert, were growing fast. Their laughter still filled every corner of the house, and their puppy Max had become their shadow. They were 5 going on 15, curious, mischievous, and endlessly loving. Every morning they'd run to me with flowers they picked from the garden, sometimes weeds pretending to be roses. I'd smile and put them in a cup of water on the kitchen table anyway. The peace in our house felt new and fragile, like a soft wind after a storm. But peace, I realised, needed protection and effort. One Sunday morning, as I was trimming the bushes in the garden, I saw Linda again. My old neighbour-turned-rival had changed too. She walked over with a basket of lemons from her yard and said, "Julie, I made lemonade. Want some?" We both laughed. Who would have thought that the 2 women who once screamed over a broken fence would now share fruit and laughter over it? Life had a funny way of teaching lessons. But not everything was calm beyond our little world. One evening, Amelia received a call that changed everything again. It was from a well-known event organizer in the city who wanted her to perform at a national concert, a huge opportunity. It was her dream come true. But there was a catch. The show would be in another city, and she'd have to move there temporarily for rehearsals and promotion. She was torn. She didn't want to leave home, especially now that things were peaceful again, but I knew I couldn't hold her back. "Go," I told her. "The world needs to hear your voice. We'll always be here when you come home." She hugged me tightly. "You've always believed in me, Mom. That's why I can do this." The house felt emptier after she left. The twins missed her songs, Martin missed her cheerful chatter, and Amanda often sat quietly in her room listening to her recordings. I missed her presence the most. The way she'd hum while washing dishes, or the way she'd steal my hairpins before every performance. But I was proud. My daughter was chasing her dream fearlessly. A few weeks later, Amelia's performance aired live on television. We all sat together in the living room, me, Martin, the twins, Amanda and Max, curled up at our feet. As the lights dimmed and Amelia walked onto the stage, I felt my heart stop. She began to sing, her voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. The audience swayed with her melody. Her song was about family, forgiveness, and love, our story in a way. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I listened. Every word carried a piece of us, every note a piece of her journey. When the song ended, the crowd stood up, applauding for minutes. Amelia bowed with a tearful smile, her face glowing under the lights. That night, she became a star. After the show, her video went viral across the country. People praised her for her authenticity, her courage, and her voice that felt like truth. She started getting offers from big record labels, ones that respected her identity this time. I thought life was finally giving us a happy ending. But peace, as I'd learned, never lasts forever without effort. A month after Amelia's big performance, Martin started feeling unwell. At first, he brushed it off, just tiredness, he said, from long hours at the shop. But when he began coughing constantly and losing weight, I insisted we visit a doctor. The results broke me. Martin had pneumonia caused by years of neglecting his health, and the doctor warned that his lungs were weak. He needed rest, medication, and care. I felt the old panic rising, that fear of losing control, of losing him. But this time, I didn't let anger or despair take over. I focused on what mattered, keeping him comfortable and positive. The twins helped by drawing him get well soon cards. Amanda managed his medicine schedule, and Amelia, even from afar, called every night to sing to him softly over the phone. Martin slowly began to recover. Watching him smile again felt like watching the sun rise after a long night. One evening he took my hand and said, "You saved me, Julie. Not just now, but all these years, even when things were hard." I smiled, brushing his hair gently. We saved each other. As weeks passed, his health improved. The laundry shop reopened slowly, with help from Amanda and me. Life returned to its steady rhythm. The hum of washing machines, the chatter of customers, the smell of soap and fabric softener in the air. And one day I realized something. I no longer dreaded mornings. I looked forward to them. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since my youth. Little notes, reflections, and memories. I wrote about my journey, my mistakes, my healing, and my love for my family. Writing became another form of therapy, a way to understand myself. Amanda encouraged me to turn my writings into a small book. "Mom, people need to hear stories like yours," she said. "Not everyone has the courage to face their flaws and change." I laughed, shaking my head. "Who would want to read about an old woman's temper?" She smiled. "Everyone who's ever lost control and wanted to be better." Maybe she was right. One afternoon, as I sat in the garden, I looked around. At the twins playing with Max, at the blooming flowers, at the sunlight falling on Martin's face as he fixed the fence, and I felt peace, real peace, for the first time in my life. The same garden that once sparked my anger had become my sanctuary. The same marriage I almost ended was now my greatest blessing. The woman who once shouted at the world now whispered thank you to it. But little did I know, another surprise was waiting. One that would make me see just how far I had come and how much I still had to give. When I think back now, it feels like my life split into two parts, before the storm and after it. Before, I was always rushing, reacting, shouting, fixing things that didn't need fixing. After, I started learning what it really meant to breathe, to slow down, to accept. It wasn't easy, but it was worth every tear and every sleepless night. The therapy sessions changed more than just my temper. They opened a part of me I had long buried, the soft, forgiving side that motherhood had once awakened, but life had hardened. I started to notice how often I used to speak with tension, how often I snapped over things that could be solved with kindness. The doctor said anger is like a glass of water filled to the brim. Every drop of stress adds up until it spills. I had been spilling for years without realizing it. I apologized to Martin in my own way, slowly, not with flowers or gifts, but through small things. I started visiting his laundry shop more often, bringing him tea in the afternoon, folding clothes beside him, sharing stories about customers like we used to. He didn't say anything for days, but I could see the peace slowly returning to his eyes. He had always wanted me to be happy, not perfect, just calm and happy. That realization broke me a little inside. The twins, Rose and Robert, were my little sunshine during those months. They had no idea about the word divorce or anger issues. All they saw was a mommy who sometimes cried and then smiled a lot after. They would crawl into my arms with their little puppy, whom they named Snowball, and tell me that Snowball doesn't like sad people. I laughed through tears every time they said that. Children can heal you without even knowing how deep your wounds are. Amanda, on the other hand, had grown quiet. After that shocking revelation about her boyfriend, she stopped smiling for weeks. I was worried at first, thinking she might have done something rash, but she surprised me. One morning, she came to me while I was watering the garden and said she wanted to volunteer at a community centre helping troubled teens. I asked her why, and she told me she wanted to understand how people fall into the wrong crowd and how to help them climb out. Her words made me proud beyond measure. My daughter, who almost fell into darkness, was now learning to bring light to others. Amelia's world had changed too. The video of her singing at that concert went viral online. She became an overnight sensation in our small town. Record labels started reaching out, people asked for interviews, and she got invited to perform again. I stood backstage that night when she sang her heart out, watching the crowd roar her name, realizing that my quiet little girl had turned into a star. When she finished, she ran into my arms, her face shining with tears, saying, "I did it, Mom." I whispered, "You always could, darling. You just didn't know it." As for me, I began to write. My therapist suggested keeping a journal, but it became something deeper. Every night after everyone went to bed, I wrote about my life. The laundry shop, the neighbours, the children, the anger, the love, the laughter, and the regrets. It helped me understand who I was beneath all the noise. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was losing control of my life. I was steering it. Months passed, and the divorce papers remained unsigned. One evening, Martin came home from the shop with that same tired towel over his shoulder. He sat next to me on the porch where we often used to sit in silence. The sky was painted in soft orange, the twins were chasing Snowball in the yard, and the air smelled of summer and soap. He didn't say much, just reached for my hand. It was the simplest gesture, but it felt like forgiveness, like home. I squeezed his hand back. That was enough. Things weren't perfect afterward, and they never will be. The neighbour still complains about the fence. The twins still spill juice on the carpet. Amanda sometimes doubts herself, and Amelia still hides her insecurities behind her songs. But I learned that imperfection is not the opposite of happiness. It's a part of it. Life isn't supposed to be flawless. It's supposed to be real. Every Sunday now, we gather for breakfast. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, laughter echoing through the house tells us about her volunteering stories. Amelia hums new melodies she's working on, and the twins chase Snowball under the table. Martin watches all of us with that same soft smile, his eyes reflecting pride and peace. And I sit there quietly, feeling grateful that the storm didn't destroy us. It changed us. Sometimes, when I walk into the garden early in the morning, I remember the days when I used to argue with the neighbours about broken plants. Now, when something gets trampled, I just pick up the pieces, replant and move on. I guess that's what life taught me. You can't stop others from stepping into your garden, but you can choose how to grow again after they leave. I often whisper to myself while tending the flowers, "You did it, Julie. You found your peace. It took 50 years, 4 children, 1 almost divorce, and a lifetime of lessons. But I finally understood that strength isn't in shouting the loudest or being right. It's in staying calm when everything around you falls apart." That's my story. Of anger turned into calm. Of mistakes turned into meaning. Of a simple woman who learned that even behind a laundry shop, life can be filled with colours no detergent could ever wash away. And as the sun sets over Maple Street, with laughter echoing from my home and Snowball's little paws running across the grass, I realise something. I don't need a perfect life. I already have a beautiful one.